May I come in?
Yes, please. Dr. Prasanna?
Very good morning, sir. Very good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Please sit down. You call yourself Dr. Prasanna or Prasanna Kumar or what?
Sir, Dr. Prasanna Kumar, sir.
Dr. Prasanna. All right, very good. So, Doctor, your that is very impressive, I must say that. You got 94% in class 10, 98% in class 12. You did your MBBS from one of the finest institutions of the country, and then you are a medical officer today, and then you say that you are interested in cooking and traveling and airing, chess, national level, and then best outgoing all-rounder award among the MBBS students, state best child award. I'm really curious to know about this state best child award. What was this?
Sir, that is an award given.
You can take off mask, please.
Sir, the State Best Child Award is conferred by the Jawahar Bal Bhavan of each and every state, sir. So they confer from 6th standard to 10th standard. So based on your academic excellence as well as on the co-curricular activities if you are part of it. So based on that, they have a marking system, and based on that, I was awarded this award.
So you are the best child of your state?
In the Union Territory of Pondicherry, sir.
In the Union Territory. And it's an annual award?
Sir, it happens once in 2 years, sir. It's a biannual award, sir.
Very good. And then when you say you're the best outgoing all-rounder.
Yes, sir.
So in addition to your studies, what all were you doing in the university or college?
So the main important things which I was doing was I was the president of the JIPMA Students Association.
Well, I saw that you were the president of Student Association.
So that was a major part of my work, sir. Because I was a part of it, I was working on so many aspects in the college for the improvement of the students' experience inside the college.
So when you became president, it was an elected position?
Yes, sir.
Nominated or what?
Yes, sir. It's based on elections, sir.
Election. How many people participated in that election?
Sir, it includes a vote of all the 115 MBBS graduates, 200 BSc nursing students, and other allied people,
so
around
as
400
president,
people. Sir.
What initiative did you take for the welfare of students?
Sir, to put in a nutshell, I think I did 3 important things, sir. First thing was improving the sports facilities inside my college, sir. Second thing, there was a long pending request of a parking area for all the students. So based on our initiative, our organization's initiative, we did that, sir.
What else?
And third thing was we had a newly built, renovated library based on our initiatives. These were the 3 important things which we did during our tenure, sir.
I also observed that you were you were the founder and the president of the NGO Smile Foundation.
Yes, sir.
What is this NGO?
Sir, this was based on the inspiration which was given by my father, sir. Basically, right from our childhood days, we have been celebrating all our birthdays in orphanage setups only. So based on that, when I joined college, we had a group of friends, very inspired friends. We all started this NGO called Smile Foundations in Pondicherry. Initially, we worked for the welfare of the underprivileged, but over the course of time, we also modified ourselves and we specialize now in education of the underprivileged students in and around Puducherry district, sir. And we were also awarded the best NGO of Puducherry in the year 2014, sir.
Fantastic. You are continuing with that foundation?
So right now, it's a process which we have done where the next batch students take over every year, sir. So right now, my juniors are going forward.
Okay, Dr. Prasanna, we observe that you are continuing as a duty medical officer.
Yes, sir.
And we just had a very big catastrophe called Corona, and even now we are not out of the crisis.
Yes, sir.
What are your views on the management of Corona by the government in this country?
Sir, my view on the management can be divided into some hits as well as some misses, sir. Basically, dealing with the pandemic with such a huge population was a major challenge for a country like India. But India has done very well with respect to now the ongoing vaccination, which where in absolute numbers we are doing the best among the countries.
The population is very large.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of percentage, we are not very good, and not in terms of percentage, but against target. Yes, very impressive.
Yes, sir. In those cases, we were slightly away from the.
So, what were the shortcomings in vaccination? What could have been done to improve it substantially?
Sir, any vaccination kind of a drive, it basically combines both the government efforts as well as the public efforts. So from the public effort side, during the month of February, March, when the vaccination drive was launched, there was too much of hesitancy, sir, because based on the availability of data, a lot of people were hesitant. And after the second wave hit, only people realized that we have to get vaccinated, and there was so much rush.
Resistance,
Yes,
there was
sir.
hesitancy,
Yes,
that
sir.
will always happen. And we should have learned, or we must have learned from the smallpox.
Yes, sir.
And not only from smallpox, and thereafter from polio.
Definitely, sir.
So something good could have been done.
Yes, sir.
So what were the shortcomings? I'm asking about the shortcomings and what could have been done.
Yes, sir. So the major shortcomings were, first of all, the lack of trust between the public and the government institutions. So that should have been addressed in a much better way. And second thing was, even from the government's perspective, there was so much of issue between release of funds towards research, vaccine research, and ordering of vaccines, as well as on allocation of funds on a timely
Why
basis.
there was so much of reluctance on the part of the government to release funds to the private parties to produce more vaccines?
So the government really realized that they had to go with the vaccines, but I personally felt that the government was not too much prepared for tackling such a second wave, sir. So that was the main reason for.
Whether second wave would come or not,
Yes, sir.
objective was to get everyone vaccinated.
Definitely, sir.
That is 1.38 billion people,
Definitely,
ultimately including children.
sir. Yes, sir.
So whether second wave is coming or not, don't you think it was a huge shortcoming on the part of the government
Yes, sir.
to slack
Definitely,
on
sir.
the vaccination program?
Definitely, sir. Because we can see that from the approach of the government itself, basically for the health budget, we allotted 35,000
My last
rupees for.
question: do you
Yes,
think that we should make the vaccination mandatory?
Sir, in this era of liberty and democracy, I think we cannot force anyone to get vaccinated. Rather than we should focus on motivating people to get vaccinated, sir. Because India is a democracy, and we all believe.
We started that Tika Utsav, this, that, whole lot of things, but nothing much happened.
Yes, sir. So basically, we can start with a little bit of motivation as well as little bit of coercion, which is not force, sir. Like, say, for example, yesterday in the country of France, they said that from August 1st onwards, without a vaccination certificate, you cannot come to the public places without RT-PCR reports. So now, every time when you go to the public, you have to have a RT-PCR report. It becomes difficult, and people will automatically get motivated to get
Thank you,
vaccinated.
Dr. Prasanna.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. People who are from Pondicherry, in case an outsider asks them, are you from Tamil Nadu or these things, they immediately respond by saying no. Why?
Ma'am, because Puducherry has been granted a special union territory status, and I feel that there is a little bit of cultural difference which exists in Puducherry even today, that makes people feel that slightly they are different from exactly from Tamil Nadu. These are the two reasons I can think of.
Yeah. What are the cultural differences?
Even today, we have little bit of French influence in the region of Puducherry, ma'am. Say it starts from the cuisines them per se. We have a lot of French cuisines still present in the main town of Puducherry. Right from the architecture to the heritage, which is present in the main town, it is definitely much different from any other part of India, ma'am. So those cultural heritage are still preserved. And there was one more possibility, like in 1954, when French government declared independence for Puducherry, they granted a lot of citizenship for the citizens of Puducherry. So a lot of people in Puducherry still have citizenship links with France even today, ma'am.
So that's why they resist to being called a
It's not
Tamil Nadu.
resistance.
Though
Probably
the
they would like to be
language-
differentiated.
the
ma'am.
language. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Fine. About the cooking,
Yes, ma'am.
as a hobby, can you just differentiate between the cuisine of all the 4 states of South?
Ma'am, when we talk about Kerala, I think there is a little bit extra flavor towards coconut and coconut oils, ma'am. And there is more lineage towards non-vegetarianism in their cuisine, ma'am. If we talk about Karnataka, most of the dishes, right from sambar to all your korambu, they call it in the local term, ma'am, everything has a little bit of tinge of sweet inside that, ma'am. When we go to Andhra, I think it is more of spice, which is present in most of the dishes, and even their famous dishes like Gonkura are all known for their spices. And when we come to Tamil Nadu, I feel it's basically a mix of all these elements, and there is more predominance towards rice in Tamil Nadu, ma'am. So this is the major difference I could think of.
Why in Tamil Nadu during evening after this thing they are not served rice and all? Any particular reason?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Now, it's basically, I think it's the impact of globalization trend as well as people's preferences. and there is a long pending association of diabetes also associated with. A lot of people tell that with excess intake of rice, you get diabetes, all these complications and all. So people have slowly started moving towards like idlis and dosas in the night. And more than that, what I feel, ma'am, now in this kind of very busy schedule for everyone, I think making rice takes a much lot of time, which whereas idli and dosa which becomes much easier to make also, ma'am. I think all these factors together made the preference towards idlis and dosas towards the night also.
Yeah, because it's very difficult to find rice in these states.
Definitely.
Anyway, why in technical institutions, especially in medical colleges, we find a lot of drug consumption? That is, a lot of youngsters become drug addicts. Why?
Ma'am, I just want to tell one example from my personal life, ma'am. Basically, when we go into a college like JIPMER or any medical colleges, what happened is that we have seen people who have been preparing for long years before they get into such an institute. So once they come over there, they just want to free out after such a stressful journey of 4 years or 5 years of preparation. And that is when your peer pressure and the experience, which they call as, they want to just explore everything in their life, that kind of attitude sets in for these students, ma'am. And when they move, mostly when medical colleges are there, students are from different backgrounds and they are out of their family control also for the first time, most probably. So all these factors together combine people to go to this explorative phase of drug consumption, ma'am. And it's a very sad state of affairs that a lot of people are getting into this habit. But what I personally have seen is that once they come towards internship or during the first year of PG, then that is when they realize that, okay, all these things were just for fun. Let's move out of this, and they become a little more serious and they come out of it, ma'am.
So how much of percentage of people get out of this?
I'm not exactly sure about. Probably if you ask me, like 50% get out of it when they come to internship or when they start doing post-graduation, ma'am.
Okay. Why, I'm coming back to the same kind of a question, that is about the mental stress among young people these days. Why there's so much? We used to never hear about people talking about stress. I think when I was a student or in our generation, we never really talk about stress and depression. But now we see even young people at 16, 15, they talk about stress and depression. Why?
According to me, there are two major reasons, ma'am. First is the pressure of socialization, ma'am. Nowadays, we are all exposed to so much of media, online content, which glorifies this habit of basically trying drugs, and or it glorifies the habit of having all the materialistic desires. So which puts an additional pressure for the people to also enjoy such things. So even if you don't have money, but you take it as a personal thing and you want to enjoy and explore all those things. And second thing, what I feel is there is a trend going towards a perfect score nowadays, ma'am. Even if you get 99.9, it's not enough. So there's too much pressure.
It's only related to studies?
Exactly, ma'am. Like the syllabus is probably might not have changed that much, but the problem is there is a huge pressure on the scores, ma'am. Like everyone wants to get a centum in all the subjects, ma'am. So that adds to the burden of the students. Already so much discoveries, our books are getting upgraded. Already the syllabus is also increasing, as well as the score pressure is also increasing. I think this leads to a lot of stress.
Not related to family not being present, or the emotional bonding, or the communication, times. You think that doesn't matter?
Definitely, ma'am. I just got up with these two important points, but definitely I personally feel that family is the one which has to act as a stress reliever and also a guide for all these students, because they are in their formative ages. So that is very important. And as you told, ma'am, the society as such as a whole has an impact on the children, ma'am, because what they get inspired and what they actually do in the society, their peers, all these things also do play a role, ma'am. Definitely play a role, ma'am.
Last question. 3 laws which have been introduced in the recent past to enhance the status of women.
First law I can think of is Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Act 2021. Second thing, what I could think of now is that increased allotment to the sanitation program, the Pradhan Mantri Atmanirbhar Swasth Abhiyan. So that is one thing which has a special component for women I can think of right now, ma'am.
That's a program or a policy. I'm talking about the law.
Law. Ma'am, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not unable to recollect at this time.
Thank you.
Sorry, ma'am.
Dr. Prasanna, recently in the wake of COVID, WHO was criticized for being late in declaring COVID as a pandemic. So, is there any objective criteria to declare a pandemic? What criteria that is?
So, that was a major issue, sir. There was no objective set criteria for declaring a pandemic. We have vague definitions like, say, for example, an epidemic means there is a rise in the number, abnormal rise in the number of cases. So similarly, when this epidemic becomes a worldwide phenomenon, it becomes a pandemic. So we don't have an objective criteria for fixing the numbers. So that was the main reason why this was so much delayed, sir, for declaring a pandemic.
Did WHO took any step after that?
Sir, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware of it, sir.
We all know that prevention is better than cure.
Definitely.
Where
sir.
India stands on preventive healthcare?
Sir, I think we are doing very poor, sir. I can just sum up with one statistic, sir. Say, for example, we have cancers like breast cancer, which can be easily prevented by general breast examination. But as per the NFHS4 data say that from 15 to 14, like 59 years women, only 9% of the women are screened for breast cancer, sir. So basically, if we see in that front, we are like extremely poor on the preventive health aspects, sir. Like for major cancers like breast cancer, which are completely preventable, we just have only 9% of the women, which shows the real status of India in preventive health, sir.
What steps you would take as the district administrator to promote the preventive healthcare culture in your area?
As a district collector, probably I would like to work on two different aspects, sir. One from the government aspect, where we need to enhance the information, sir, because there is a huge information asymmetry right now, sir. Because people are not aware of how these diseases can be prevented, and they don't know what exactly to be done, where to get approached. All these things, they are not aware of these information. First of all, we need to increase that information, sir.
We know that information is very important
Definitely.
component for success of any program. What channels, what existing channels you will use to spread the information of preventive health culture?
Sir, we have a huge network of health, health facilities and the health channels, up to the lowest level, like the ASHA workers, A&M workers. So we can use them as a change entrepreneurs kind of a thing, where they can go and increase the trust between the government as well as the people, and also make them aware of all this information, so that they come and seek these health facilities for the preventive aspect of it, sir. And in this world of digital era, I think everyone is reachable on their smartphones, sir. So I think we need to increase a digital health initiative so that people are aware from their homes itself, sir.
Penetration is quite good. You like traveling. What kind of traveling?
Sure. There is no particular travel which I am interested. Basically, it all depends. Whenever I am free, we just backpack and go, sir. Say for example, last year before the COVID pandemic, we just planned 2 days in Priya and we went to Shillong. And we didn't book anything. We just went and took a two-wheeler for rent, and we just backpacked and came back, sir. So we just believe in these unplanned trips, and we believe that the travel is much more enjoyable than the destination itself, sir.
Following tennis. What kind of tennis? Lawn tennis, table tennis?
Sure. Basically, I follow the regular tennis, all these grass court, clay court, all the events, sir.
Okay. So recently, Novak Djokovic was in news.
Yes, sir.
Why? What was special about that event?
Recently, he won his 20th major Grand Slam, sir. So he equals the records of Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, and he is in the quest of securing a golden slam this year, sir. So he's right now participating in Tokyo Olympics also. So he'll be the first male person in the Open.
Already he has achieved some landmark.
Yes, sir.
By winning all the Grand Slams.
Yes, sir.
Multiple times.
Yes, sir.
He's the only player, I think.
Yes, sir. For the second time, sir. 2 times the career Grand Slams. He is the only person to do it.
He's the only person.
Prasanna, picking up your discussion with the Honorable Chairman, sir, when you were discussing that whether the mandatory vaccination should be there or not, you gave the example of France, where they had said that into the public place, if you have to come, you need to be vaccinated or RT-PCR.
Definitely.
In India, can we also implement such kind of things? Some restrictions that only the people, if they are vaccinated, they will only be allowed.
So I think this policy can be implemented after some time, where people are given the opportunity to first get vaccinated, sir, because there are long queues right now. Even if people want to get vaccinated, we don't have the supply for that, sir. So I think once the supply is more than the demand, that is when we should move towards these policies, sir, so that people will get vaccinated definitely. And if we start implementing such policies at the moment, sir, it will lead to, I think it will be against the right to equality. It will be like a discrimination against those who are not vaccinated. It's because of not their fault of theirs, sir.
But yes, Guwahati High Court had just now come with a judgment and has said that such kind of things are baseless. They will be violative of fundamental rights.
Yes, sir.
It has been said that even there is no evidence that the people who have been vaccinated, they cannot get infected. Even they could be the super spreaders.
Definitely, sir.
So if they could be super spreaders, they could get infected. Then what is the rationale of these kind of things then?
Sir, definitely, sir, I can agree with your argument, sir. But the only issue is that at least few percent, it's not that all the vaccinated people will get reinfected. There is only few percentage which we call it as breakthrough infections, sir. At least most of the population will not be exposed to this repeated infections, or they will not become a super spreader. And more than all the spreading information, like spreading of the virus, sir, it's more about prevention of death also, sir, because we have a clear data right now which says that the mortality rate of all those vaccinated are much less than those who are unvaccinated. So for that reason's sake, at least we should go push towards vaccination of everyone, sir.
Prasanna, recently the 15th Finance Commission submitted its report, and in the report, much of the observations have been made with respect to the health sector.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on to the suggestions given into the 15th Finance Commission with respect to the health?
Sir, I'm sorry, sir, I'm unable to recollect it at this moment, sir.
Okay, let's talk a little bit on to the global affairs.
Yes.
Right now we see that situation in Afghanistan, it's very much volatile. There are a large number of implications that might be there into the India. Now, what has happened in Afghanistan? USA had pulled back. Okay, India is not very much clear that okay, what type of policy we need to follow. The China is taking the advantage here.
Yes.
Just very recently, the China and Pakistan foreign ministers meet has concluded, and now they are saying that one way to bring stability into the Afghanistan is to extend the China-Pakistan economic corridor to Afghanistan also, because by the development, terrorism will go down. Now, India is in a very sticky kind of situation because CPEC, we had never allowed it.
Definitely, sir.
And now even we can't oppose CPEC because it is being attached with the stability of the Afghanistan. So how India can go out of this dilemma? What India needs to do into this situation?
Sir, as you told that India is in a very sticky situation, I think now our foreign minister has made it very clear that India is not averse for having a dialogue with Taliban also. So we have already started our back channel diplomacies with the Taliban. I think it's a time that we need to take a stance right now of till what extent that India wants to involve in this region. Because as of now, as you told, sir, it's all it's like still a great game, they call it in the international relations, sir, where we really don't know what is the position of US or what is the real position of Russia or China and Pakistan. I think right now India is playing a waiting game, probably because when all these players start deciding on what exactly to be done, and that is when I think we should start exerting our influence. And because if we start involving directly with the Taliban right now, because they are gaining prominence, it will be against our morals, values and principles, because they are in one
Sorry,
side.
Prasanna, I'm interrupting you here in between.
Definitely.
But I specifically want to ask your take on CPEC. CPEC is being, it has been suggested that it should be extended to Afghanistan so that the development counters the terrorism.
Yes.
But CPEC, you know, it passes from the POK.
Okay.
Should we, what could be the best way? Should we oppose it? Should we allow it? Or what could be?
Sir, as we have already opposed CPEC because it's against the sovereignty, there will be no question of approving it right now, sir, because it will be like taking back our sovereign words. So probably I think based on my opinion, I would say that let's be neutral about it. Do not comment about it as of now, because let the position become very clear. Then we can take a take.
Dr. Prasanna, you said
Yes, sir.
that India is now not averse to talking to Taliban. So we are changing our stand.
Yes, sir.
Here also we can change our stand. What is so strong, what is so rigid about having a stand against this initiative of infrastructure?
Sir, because
Things change and we got to change, otherwise we'll get fossilized.
definitely, sir.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And anyway, you listen.
Okay, Prasanna,
Yes.
your hobby is traveling.
Yes.
Have you visited any of the Indus Valley civilization site?
No, sir.
Okay, have you traveled to any of the World Heritage site?
Yes, sir.
Which you have traveled?
Sir, I have been to all these great Chola temples of Tamil Nadu. Then I have been to Hampi, Pattadakal, and I have been to Taj Mahal. So there are many sites I have traveled actually, sir.
Okay. How many sites are there?
Sir, right now we had the, I think, 38th site which was installed 3 or 4 days back with a site. I'm not exactly remembering the name, sir. It's a temple.
Can you recall the state?
It's a Telangana. It's a temple, sir, in Telangana.
Prasanna, my last question. Recently, the National Commission for Allied Healthcare Professionals Act was passed. Can you tell what it is all about?
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't read about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.